Hello, you're listening to Abstract AF, and I'm Sneha Jaswal. In this episode, we're going to talk about the book The Dangers of Smoking in Bed by Mariana Enriquez, which, by the way, was shortlisted for the 2021 International Booker Prize. I picked up the book because it's a short story collection and belongs to my favorite genre, contemporary horror fiction. It has 12 short stories and was written originally in Spanish, so the English version is translated by Megan McDowell. Let's start with some of the praise Enriquez has received from the author community. I loved these twisted, lustful whispers in the dark. There is serious power in this writing, says Daisy Johnson, author of Sisters. Rotting little ghosts, heartbeat fetishes, curses and witches and meat. Each of these stories is a luscious, bewitching nightmare. Each one builds up a steady, thrilling dread until the final lines when the true horror is revealed. I adore this book. This is from Kirsty Logan, author of The Gracekeepers. A weird and wonderful exploration of contemporary horror, cities falling apart, society turning on itself, the loneliness of the internet age. But more than that, these stories are fun, wild, triggering, sinister, button-pushing fun, says Lisa McNerney, author of The Glorious Heresies. Now, such lavish praise from authors obviously sets up high expectations, and while I loved four stories, the others ranged from interesting to quite disappointing. I feel like maybe the biggest problem is that English readers like me don't get to see the real spark of Mariana's prowess as a writer. At a lot of points in the stories, it just felt like maybe it would have been more fluid in Spanish than the uninspiring English that I get to read in large parts. As someone whose first language is not English, I can understand how a different language just cannot capture the nuances and beauty of a local tale when it's narrated in alien tongue. So, if you can understand Spanish, you should definitely read the original work instead of the translated version. Something that stands about this book is the fact that all stories are helmed by women protagonists. They're brimming with hopes, passions, fears, and sometimes sheer madness. There's gore, violence, and a lot of sense of dread through the chapters, but it's not the kinds that'll keep you up through the nights. The first story, titled Angelita Unearthed, is about a young woman being haunted by a baby ghost, where readers can simply assume that it's a case of hallucination or a mental health problem. The second one, called Our Lady of the Quarry, was about a bunch of jealous teen girls going out swimming in a forbidden place with an older couple. This had a very typical open ended horror twist in the climax, and I felt like these two stories weren't impressive and were a little tame in comparison to the rest of the book. They kind of dilute the expectations of horror readers, which in a way will work for some of us because the third story is where you finally see Mariana Enriquez's penchant for the genre. I quite liked the third one, titled The Cart. It's set in an impoverished neighborhood, and Enriquez puts in some very visceral imagery that makes you feel like you're right there on that poor street, wafting with strange, disgusting smells and drunk people. It's almost like a zombie apocalypse, except that chaos descends upon just one locality, where crippling poverty turns people into savage animals. It's a pretty powerful tale of how economic inequality can ruin lives, even though on the surface it seems like it's about a curse on an ill fated community or locality. So the plots really pick up from the third short story. They get more sinister, and each one is distinctly different from the other. Some are filled with local lores and superstitions, while others explore lesser heard of fetishes and macabre obsessions. The kind of themes that the author explores are worth taking note of. She touches upon mental health issues, of course, but then she also explores childhood trauma, sexual exploitation, child prostitution, and a lot of other such issues. It's just that while some of them have a lot of depth and layers to them, a few feel like they were written as a script for some low budget, campy American horror movie. Like, I kept looking forward to reading the title tale, the one called The Dangers of Smoking in Bed, It's story number 11, but it was extremely underwhelming. For me, it didn't even fit under the horror genre much. And to make things worse, it was very short and abrupt. The open ended climax was disappointing. It almost put me to sleep. Maybe I failed to catch the deeper meaning to the tale. I don't know. What I do know is there's something that just tells me that this book must have been a lot more fun in the original Spanish language. For readers who like contemporary horror, Dangers of Smoking in Bed is definitely a book worth checking out. I would rate it a 3 on 5, and I did love a few of the stories. Maybe you will too. That's all for this episode. Talk to you in the next one.